Hi, and welcome to Bookish English. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started. Important leaders meet. The world is watching. Two important leaders, Donald Trump, the President of the United States, and Volodymyr Zelensky, the President of Ukraine, meet. What happens when they meet is a big deal. It's about war, stopping fighting, and working together. This video tells you about their meeting in February 2025. It's a very important time for them and for many countries. Trump and Zelensky are different people, but they have important jobs. There is a war in Ukraine. It's very difficult for everyone. Many soldiers are dying. Cities are getting damaged, and people are afraid. Trump wants the war to stop. He thinks he can make an agreement. Zelensky needs help to protect his country. He wants America to support Ukraine strongly. This makes their talks very serious. Why is this important? The war in Ukraine affects the whole world, not just Ukraine. Countries are watching to see if Trump and Zelensky can find solutions. Will there be peace? Will America and Ukraine work well together? These are big questions, and this video looks at them carefully. Trump likes to talk about peace. He says he is good at making deals. He thinks he can stop the war quickly. Zelensky is fighting for his country every day. He knows war is terrible and wants it to end, but he also wants Ukraine to be safe. Both leaders have ideas. Both want good things to happen, but it's not easy. The first meeting. In February 2025, the White House was ready for an important visitor. President Zelensky from Ukraine came to Washington, D.C., for his first meeting with President Trump. The world was watching closely. They had many big problems to talk about, especially the war in Ukraine. President Trump welcomed President Zelensky at the White House entrance. They shook hands for the cameras. Both leaders looked serious but friendly. They went inside together, ready to start talking. The meeting started in the Oval Office. It's a serious room with important American symbols. President Trump sat at his big desk. President Zelensky sat across from him, with their teams on each side. The feeling was formal, but also hopeful. President Trump started the conversation. He said hello to President Zelensky at the White House. He said it was important to meet in person. He talked about the difficult situation in Ukraine and said the United States wanted to help find a solution. President Zelensky thanked President Trump for inviting him. He spoke about the war in his country. He explained the problems Ukraine was facing every day. He said that peace was needed, but it should be a fair agreement that respected Ukraine's needs. The first part of their talk was about the war. They talked about the people hurt by the war, soldiers and normal people. President Trump listened carefully as President Zelensky described what was happening in Ukraine. President Zelensky said he hoped the United States could help to end the war. Both leaders agreed that stopping the war was most important. They talked about making peace. President Trump said he believed in talking and finding common ground. President Zelensky said it was important for any peace deal to be fair and just. In their first words, there were signs of working together. Both presidents talked about things they both wanted. They both wanted peace in Ukraine. They talked about a safe and stable Europe. It seemed they wanted to work together from the beginning. After the meeting in the Oval Office, the two presidents spoke briefly to the public. President Trump told reporters, "We had a very good first meeting. We are starting to understand each other. We both want to stop the war. It will not be easy, but we will try." President Zelensky also spoke. He said, "This first meeting was important. I think President Trump is serious about peace. We still have a long way to go, but this is a good start. Ukraine wants a fair peace, and we hope to work with the United States to get it." The first meeting finished. It was just the beginning of a long and difficult process, but the first feelings were that they were willing to talk and find solutions. The world waited to see what would happen next. It was very important, and the way to peace was not clear. But the first meeting gave a little hope for working together. The agreement talks. After the first meeting, President Trump and President Zelensky started talking about an agreement. This agreement was important for both countries. The talks happened in meeting rooms in Washington, D.C. Many people from the U.S. and Ukraine were there. They talked for many hours each day. Ukraine wanted a strong agreement. President Zelensky said Ukraine needed more help from the United States. He wanted the U.S. to support Ukraine against Russia. For Ukraine, this was the most important thing. Ukraine wanted to be safe. They wanted to feel protected from Russia. They also talked about resources. Ukraine has important minerals in the ground. These are called rare earth minerals. They are used to make many things like phones and computers. Ukraine was ready to work with the U.S. on these minerals. The United States also had important things they wanted. President Trump said the U.S. wanted to help bring peace. He wanted to find a way to stop the war between Russia and Ukraine. This was not easy. President Trump also wanted to protect America's interests. This means he wanted to make sure the agreement was good for America, too. The U.S. was interested in safety, not just in Europe, but also for itself. The U.S. team talked about how the agreement could help America be safer. During the talks, it was clear that both sides had different main goals. Ukraine wanted strong support to protect itself from Russia. The United States was trying to find a balance. They wanted to help Ukraine, but they also wanted to find peace and make sure the agreement was good for the U.S. This was difficult. It was not easy to agree on everything. One big question was about the rare earth minerals. The U.S. really wanted these minerals from Ukraine. Ukraine was ready to talk, but they also wanted to make sure they got enough security help in return. It was like a trade. The U.S. gives security, and Ukraine gives minerals. But how much of each? This was hard to decide. Another problem was Russia. Russia was a big part of the problem. Ukraine wanted the U.S. to be very strong against Russia. President Trump wanted to talk to Russia to find a peaceful solution. These were different ideas about Russia. It was not easy to agree. The talks went on for days. The people in the meeting rooms worked hard. They tried to find words that both sides could agree on. They looked at different ideas. Slowly, they started to write down some things they agreed on. But there were still many things they did not agree on. The agreement talks were difficult and complicated. It was not clear if they could find a final agreement that everyone would be happy with. 3. War and soldiers. In their talks, President Trump and President Zelensky spoke about the war happening now. President Trump talked about the many people lost in the war. He said that both Ukraine and Russia had lost many soldiers. He talked about the soldiers on both sides who were hurt by the fighting. President Zelensky talked about the soldiers of Ukraine. He praised their bravery and strength in protecting their country. He said that Ukrainian soldiers needed equipment to keep fighting. He talked about the problems they faced every day on the battlefield. The two leaders talked about the need to reduce the number of people hurt or killed in the war. They thought about ways to stop the fighting and find peace. President Trump and President Zelensky talked about using money for rebuilding instead of fighting. They agreed that after the war, there would be a big need to fix and rebuild places damaged by war. The conversation also talked about how the war made people feel. Both leaders knew the war was emotionally hard, not just for soldiers, but for everyone. They knew that war brings difficult times and emotional problems for families and communities. The war was causing a lot of pain and suffering. President Zelensky talked about helping people who had lost their homes and jobs because of the war. He said it was important to help them rebuild their lives and communities. President Trump listened and thought about these points. He knew it was important to deal with not just the fighting, but also the long-term effects of the war on people's lives. They both understood that war hurts people. They talked about how to make this hurt less and work towards a future where people can live in peace and safety. The talks were serious and showed the difficult reality of the war and how it affected soldiers and normal people. They focused on finding ways to move forward, reduce suffering, and build a more stable and peaceful situation for everyone. Dealing with Russia, President Trump knew that to talk about peace, he needed to talk to Russia. So, he made phone calls to President Putin. These calls were important to try and find a way to stop the fighting. President Zelensky also had strong ideas about Russia. It was a difficult situation because Ukraine and Russia had very different ideas about the war. President Trump thought talking directly to President Putin was important. He thought maybe he could find common ground. He wanted to understand what Russia wanted and see if they could make an agreement. Trump's way was to be direct and try to make a deal. He wanted to find a solution that could work for everyone, or at least stop the war from continuing. He talked about peace and how talking is better than fighting to solve problems. These phone calls were his way of starting a conversation to see if peace was possible. However, President Zelensky had a very strong opinion. For him, Ukraine's land was the most important thing. He said many, many times that Ukraine would not give up any of its land to Russia. He believed Russia was wrong to start the war and take Ukrainian land. Zelensky wanted Russia to leave all of Ukraine, including places like Crimea. He saw Russia as the one who started the war, and he felt it was important to be strong and not give in. His main goal was to protect Ukraine and its people, and he believed that meant not making any deals with Russia about land. This difference in ideas made things very hard. President Trump wanted to find a way to talk things out, which often means both sides have to give something up. But President Zelensky was not ready to give up anything when it came to Ukraine's land. This caused tension. How could they find peace if Ukraine felt it could not give up land, and Russia was occupying Ukrainian land? It was a big challenge to balance talking things out with Ukraine's strong feelings about its own country. Both leaders had to think about Russia's role in the war, but they saw it very differently. Trump wanted to talk to Russia, while Zelensky saw Russia as the enemy who should be pushed back. Finding a way forward was not going to be easy. 5. Business and resources. The talks between the United States and Ukraine also included important plans about business and resources. These plans looked at how both countries could work together for money benefits. One important area was energy. There was a plan to build new places in Ukraine to get liquefied natural gas, LNG. LNG is natural gas that is cooled down to liquid, so it's easier to move. Ukraine also wanted to make its gas storage bigger. This could help Ukraine have more energy and maybe become a center for gas in the area. The United States, under President Trump, was also interested in some specific areas. High-tech weapons were one area. This could mean the U.S. selling advanced weapons to Ukraine. Another area the U.S. was interested in was mining for rare earth minerals in Ukraine. Rare earth minerals are used in many modern things like electronics and electric cars. Getting these resources is important for many countries. From Ukraine's side, President Zelensky offered to share drone technology with the United States. Drones are flying machines without pilots that can be used for different things in defense and other areas. Sharing technology could make the relationship between the two countries stronger and offer new abilities. These business and resource plans could bring money benefits to both countries. For Ukraine, investing in LNG and gas storage could create new jobs and make its energy stronger. Agreements about weapons and technology could also create jobs in factories and related businesses in both countries. For the United States, getting access to rare earth minerals and drone technology could be good for its economy and defense. However, these kinds of agreements also have risks. Investing in big projects like LNG plants costs a lot of money and needs careful planning. Money situations and market prices can change, which can affect how much money these projects make. There are also risks with international trade and political things that could change how successful these business deals are. Both sides needed to think about these possible risks along with the possible good things as they continued their talks. 6. The breaking point. The room was full of reporters. President Trump and President Zelensky stood at tables in the Oval Office. Everyone waited for the joint press conference to start. But the feeling was different today. It was not as friendly as before. President Trump spoke first. He talked about the agreement between the U.S. and Ukraine. He mentioned the good things for both countries. Then he changed his voice. He looked at President Zelensky and said, "We've done a lot for Ukraine, a lot more than anyone." He stopped for a moment and continued, "But I'm not sure if we see enough thanks for this." His words were strong. The reporters started writing quickly. President Zelensky looked surprised. President Zelensky stepped forward to speak. He started calmly, "Ukraine is thankful for the help from the United States. We know it is important." He took a breath. But this is not just about thanks. This is about our country, about our people. He continued, "We are fighting for our land. We are losing soldiers every day. This is a very hard time for Ukraine." His voice became stronger. "We are not asking for charity. We are fighting for freedom for everyone." Vice President Vance moved closer to President Trump. He whispered something to him, but it was too quiet to hear. President Trump did not seem to listen. He spoke again. "Thanks is important, President Zelensky, very important. We are talking about a lot of money, a lot of help." He looked at the reporters. Some people are not thankful, it seems. President Zelensky answered directly, "Respect is also important, Mr. President. We respect the help. We also ask for respect for what Ukraine is going through. We are not just a business deal. We are a nation." The tension in the room was very high. You could feel it. Vice President Vance stepped forward again. This time, he spoke to everyone. "Maybe it is better if we stop here for today." He looked serious. President Trump nodded slowly. President Zelensky looked disappointed but did not say anything more. The joint news conference was canceled. Reporters started talking at once. What just happened? It was clear that something had gone wrong. What happens next? After the difficult press conference, the situation changed quickly. President Trump talked about the meeting. He said that President Zelensky was not ready for peace talks right now. Trump explained that peace is important, but it needs to be the right time for everyone. President Zelensky decided to leave Washington, D.C. He thanked the American people for being welcoming. However, he also showed he was disappointed. The visit, which started with hope, ended with questions. Now people are asking, what happens next? The agreement between the U.S. and Ukraine is not finished. The talks about resources and security are stopped for now. It is not clear if they will continue later. The relationship between the two countries is uncertain. Will the U.S. and Ukraine still work together closely, or will they go in different directions? This is a big question for many countries around the world. Other countries are watching to see what will happen next between these two leaders. One possibility is peace. Maybe after some time, both sides can find common ground again. Maybe new talks can start. Peace would be good for Ukraine, for Russia, and for the world. Many people hope that talking can still work. However, there is also the risk of more fighting. If the U.S. and Ukraine cannot agree, the war in Ukraine might continue. This would mean more problems for everyone involved. It could also affect other countries and make the world less stable. This meeting and what happened will be remembered. For President Trump, it is a moment in his leadership. People will see how he dealt with this difficult situation. For President Zelensky, this is also important. What he does is watched closely by Ukrainians and other countries. The future of Ukraine and its relationship with powerful countries depends on these decisions. The world is now waiting. Will there be peace or more fighting? The next steps from both leaders are very important. They will shape not only their own futures, but also the future of international relations and world peace. Many are hoping for good things to happen, but the situation is still uncertain and delicate. The next few months will be very important to see what happens next. Conclusion. Hey there, Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.